Prominent families that have been part of this organization include the Harrimans, Bushes, Careys, Tufts, Whitneys, Bundys, Weyerhuses, Pinchots, Goodyears, Sloans, Stimsons, Phelpses, Pillsburys, Kellogg's, Vanderbilts, and Lovetts. While the Russell shipping empire became one of the greatest and most far-reaching, there is still one more New England family that played a significant role in the trade. The Forbes clan. When the Cushings left China, the Forbes family took over operations. The Forbeses were not the first in the opium trade with China, but they brought drug smuggling to its highest level of profitability and left a legacy that extends into modern times. The Forbes family roots reach well back into Scotland, where they 254 from the sacred to the profane can be traced to at least the 13th century. Sir Alexander Forbes, the first Lord Forbes, was granted lands in 1423, and was made a Lord of Parliament in 1445. Incessant warfare in both Scotland and England made loyalty to the king precarious. Well before the massive Scottish immigration after Culloden in 1745, the Forbeses, who were Protestants, and therefore not Jacobites, were already situated in Massachusetts and connected with the families that would become American aristocracy. As with the Gardeners and others illicit traders, the fortune accumulated by the Forbeses in opium trading was invested in land and industry. John and Robert Forbes would lead the way to the family fortune. John Murray Forbes, 1813–1898, the son of Ralph Bennett Forbes and Margaret Perkins Forbes, started his business career at age 15 in the Boston counting house of his uncles James and Thomas Perkins. John Forbes was soon allowed to travel to Canton to represent the Perkins Syndicate, and he stayed for 7 years. In 1837, at the age of 24, Forbes returned from Canton so wealthy that he could finance the construction of several railroads, including the Michigan Central Railroad, which he bought unfinished and extended to Lake Michigan and Chicago. Forbes became a prime mover, leading a group of capitalists who could raise millions to complete acquisitions of companies. Many had previously invested with Forbes in the China trade, and they remained grateful for and loyal because of the fortunes they had reaped. Forbes continued to extend the Michigan Central service to Detroit and into Canada, and he built other railways including the Hannibal and St. Joseph Railroad in Missouri and the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad, of which he served as president. Notion Island. Following the lesson of Gardiner, John Forbes bought an island where he could conduct business isolated from the prying eyes of neighbors. Like Gardiner's Island, the island of Notion, just south of the Woods Hole area of Cape Cod, served as a protectorate for smugglers for as long as Massachusetts was a colony. The shifting sandbars and the assault of the Opium Brotherhood 255 times from the active ports of the New England coast protected many law-breaking merchants. The island first belonged to one of Massachusetts's most elite families, the Winthrops. There is little evidence that they were involved in the merchant trade. John Winthrop, the leader of 700 Puritans, was the first of the family who came to America. John Winthrop's idea of religion was that it was something to be imposed on others. The Taliban form of Islam is an apt comparison to the religious vision of John Winthrop. Puritans made it a crime to miss church, to dance, to sing, and to celebrate Christmas. Likewise, the Taliban made it a crime to miss prayers, to dance, to sing, and to celebrate, as opposed to observe, Islamic festival days. Both fundamentalist groups punished their people with torture and humiliation. As governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, Winthrop opposed democracy as well, believing his colony should be governed by a handful of pious leaders. Fleeing religious persecution apparently did not mean that Winthrop would hesitate to persecute others, and in America's first incidents of religious persecution, he banished Anne Hutchinson from the colony. Such elitism pervaded the thinking of the rulers of Massachusetts up to, and even after the American Revolution. The second family to own the island was the Bowditches. They would never enjoy the power of the Winthrops, or the wealth of the Forbeses, but the Bowditches were industrious seafarers, and the family was very well connected with Massachusetts blue bloods. William Bowditch sailed to America in the 17th century, when the family began making its living from the sea. Habakkuk Bowditch, a son who began a career at sea in the mid-18th century, lost 2 ships and 2 sons to the sea, and had taken up the cooper trade when his 4th son, Nathaniel, achieved long-lasting fame. Born in 1773 in Salem, Nathaniel enjoyed mathematics more than anything else, and this skill would revive the family's status. Even while in his teens, Nathaniel was renowned for his knowledge of mathematics and languages, to the point that others brought him books to further his 256 from the sacred to the profane education. He spoke French, Spanish, and German and understood Latin, and he even studied 24 other languages. Remarkably, he found an error in Newton's Principia. During the Revolution, a privateer from Beverly captured a ship carrying the library of a noted Irish scholar. A group of merchants bought the books and housed them in the philosophical library, where Nathaniel Bowditch could continue his mostly self-taught education. Despite his widespread reputation, he still had to go to sea to make his fortune. Bowditch worked as a supercargo and made 5 voyages and a huge fortune, while at the same time making lunar calculations to navigate without the use of a chronometer. Legendary status came when Bowditch navigated into Salem Harbor during a blinding snowstorm. 12 He combined his book knowledge and practical experience to enhance the ability of American merchants to navigate their own country. Bowditch rewrote the American Coastal Pilot, and then later produced his own book, The New American Practical Navigator, which served as a tool for navigating treacherous American waters until the government took over the responsibility 50 years later. 13 Bowditch's premier work is simply referred to as Bowditch by sailors. It remains a classic in the field. Since 1802 it has been reprinted in 70 editions. Bowditch, who married his cousin Mary Ingersoll, refused mathematics chairs at several universities, including Harvard, the University of Virginia, and West Point, instead preferring his position as president of the Essex Fire and Marine Insurance Company. 14 The entrance to Buzzards Bay, Norshan, the Bowditch's private island, was more of an island kingdom than a summer home. When Kidd rushed around planting his treasure, Norshan's Tarpaulin Cove and Gardiner's Island were his last stops. In the years preceding the Revolution, the cove served as a hiding place, where smugglers could wait to unload their merchandise. A lighthouse was built on Norshan just before the Revolutionary War, to protect the ships navigating the shoals. During the Revolution it served as a meeting place for privateers. James Bowditch, Nathaniel's brother, fought the government's efforts to improve the lighthouse. As the Opium Brotherhood 257 guests were unwanted. When James died in 1817, an improved lighthouse was erected. At this point the Bowditch family, which had owned Norshan for more than a century, sold the island to the Forbeses. Since then the kingdom has been in the hands of various Forbes family members and trusts. The Forbes family and Norshan Island. John Murray Forbes married into another First Family of New England, when he wed Sarah Hathaway of New Bedford. Their 5 children included William Hathaway Forbes, who married Edith Emerson, a relative of Ralph Waldo Emerson's, and became president of the newly formed Bell Telephone, John Malcolm Forbes, and Mary Hathaway Forbes, who married Russell. The Hathaway, Forbes, and Perkins families were united in a merger with Russell and Company even before John and Sarah Forbes were united in marriage. Money from the opium trade and later investments ensured the prominence of the family for generations to come. The grandson of John Murray Forbes, William Cameron Forbes, was appointed by Teddy Roosevelt as Governor-General of the Philippines, and was later appointed to a post in Asia by President Harding. John Forbes' brother was Robert Bennett Forbes, 1804–1889, who was known as Black Ben Forbes. His historical biography notes his exploits as a sea captain in the China trade, but ignores his involvement in the opium business. At age 13 Robert Forbes sailed for his uncles to China,